to join me in a very different location. Not the usual Glasgow city centre you're used to seeing, it's actually the Riyadh Metropolitano here in Madrid. And it's a bit empty at the moment, but in about an hour's time, it's going to be absolutely packed in here because it's Atletico Madrid against Real Madrid, the big local derby of Spain. And I've been fortunate enough to get a seat here. But today isn't about football, it's about film photography. A few months ago I made a video about film photography in Marrakesh, which I really seem to enjoy. And this time we're going to do it here in Madrid. Just not right now though. We'll get into it in a minute. It's the next morning after the football. Football was unbelievable. What an unbelievably amazing experience that was. But today, we're all about the film photography today. We're going to go out, take some shots. And the thing is, for good news, you can see it's a little bit sunny today, not as like proper golden hours I would have hoped for. But it is due to rain later on today, which will be quite interesting. Never done, I don't actually think I have done film photography in the rain. No, I have actually. I have when I did a black and white black and white film photography a while ago, but that was before I started YouTube, so that's been quite interesting today. Let's hopefully see what we can get. I quite like the symmetry to entrance the big park here, so it's like you have two pillars on either side. That little wee kind of tree there divides it quite well. The only thing is that just behind that, if I zoom in, the kind of with the wee bus stop post, that does sort of ruin the shot, but hopefully we'll make do with what it is. But the most difficult part is to wait till there's no cars coming, so bear with me on that. Here on this main street, you've got the light is just funneling down beautifully through here. So I'm going to try and do, I like how this tree is almost diffusing the harsh light a little bit. So I'm getting a kind of shot as like the people walk across here, like it's like this woman do in a minute. I like the kind of like living wall you have here on these block of flats. So I'm going to try get a photo of that. The 50 on the Olympus might be a bit much to be punched in, but I'll give it a go. If it's a bit too much, I can always swap it out for the 28. I'm not sure how that one panned out with the kind of living wall, because I just took a similar photo on my Fujifilm camera with the same settings, the same f-stop at f4, ISO 200, and it's kind of coming out a little bit underexposed, so I'm not quite sure the film one would have worked there. That's currently a bit of a problem with my Olympus camera. The light metering on it can be a bit temperamental and sometimes doesn't really work very well. So I'm not always quite sure if I'm actually getting it properly exposed. So I kind of have to mirror my settings onto my Fujifilm camera to see if it's actually looking any good in terms of exposure. I've come onto the middle of this kind of little wee kind of island in between these two roads. There's a great kind of shot of this huge little beautiful archway in this middle of this roundabout. Unfortunately, there's a police car. That car's parked there, so it's kind of like creating a bit of a barrier to a shot. So what I need to do is kind of like angle it. So if I kind of like mimic it here, I know it's going to kind of cut off a lot of kind of the nice kind of like flower bed in front of it, but I need to just try and make the most of what I've got at the moment, because I think that car isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Go for the classic kind of Spanish flag up here. It's the only flag that's actually waving at the moment. A lot of the buildings around here have the Spanish flag on them, but there's not really that much of a breeze this morning, so you couldn't really get much of a shot of them. Got this really kind of good kind of classic kind of wooden door and a nice archway, and that kind of nice kind of like classic wooden door coupled with the muted kind of like tones of the brick wall kind of stands out. So hopefully I can just get somebody walking through the shot, get a good one of that. So I'm not quite sure how that film one turned out, because I just took again another digital photo on my Fujifilm, and it's actually a lot darker than I thought it was, because like you see the door frame is in quite a bit of shadow and the street is in a lot of light. If you expose for the shadows of the door, this gets blown out, but if you expose for the highlights, the door gets completely overshadowed. So it's that is a bit of a tricky one. I'm not quite sure that'll turn out how I hoped it would. So golden hour might be finished, but I still come across this really good light underneath this archway here in the main square. You see there's still some nice good shadows. What I will do is I'll first test it out on the Fujifilm to kind of get an idea for, like, you know, the meter readings, and then see what we can get. But it's, you know, hopefully I can get, I'd like to get kind of like a single character kind of walk through, or person walk through, rather than a group of people, because it might cluster the photo a bit too much. Welcome to the third day of filming this video. I've stretched this one out a little bit, haven't I? I find myself, like, when I'm on holiday and I have limited, well, you've always got limited amount of shots of your film, I'm being quite selective, but I've got a second full row here, and I've come out here, it's a beautiful evening in Madrid. It's actually my last evening here, and I've found a great kind of classic spot, which I'll show you what I'm going to try and photograph. So this is the scene here. You can see the sun is coming down from the main street here. The long shadows are here. Look, the scene is pretty self-explanatory for you here, so I'm just going to go ahead and take some shots. I've actually positioned myself a little bit further down the street. Those kind of little wee bollards there, you can just about see they were not cluttering the shot, but I feel now that they're not there in the shot, it's like the kind of surface here is nice and clean. I get just the shadows, whereas it was the shadows plus the little kind of wee metal stumps there, so hopefully this will be a lot better. Please excuse the wind, or if I'm kind of shouting in case. I don't know how the audio is coming through on the phone here, but if I just zoom in there, I love how the sun is kind of just bouncing off that building and the trees are kind of diffusing it. So I'm going to dig out, I was using a 28mm on the film camera, but what I'm going to do is dig out the 50, and hopefully that'll kind of give us a better zoom, kind of more focus in on that area there. Kind of in a hurry at the moment, I'm rushing about because the time is against me. I've only just got back into the city. I had a day out where I was exploring other kind of neighbouring towns of Madrid, including Segovia and Toledo. And if you haven't been to either of those, I'd highly recommend it, particularly Toledo, but that's for another day actually. But I just need to try and capture a light which is still funneling through on the main street here. So just try and get the last few shots in while I can. The sunlight is fading fast on me, but I do like how you can see it's peeking out there from the corner of this kind of taller building here and the kind of smaller buildings behind it. I do like how it's kind of also, hopefully if I've got a wide enough lens, it's kind of diffused, it's kind of bouncing off the Spanish flags and our flags up here in this building here. So I kind of like this whole kind of situation, at least in a landscape one. I'll obviously capture it in a portrait one as well to get just kind of the building. Here's a tester, see how this one pans out. So this street down here stretches down to the main square down there, and I like the way the sun is setting in between these. Like these two rows of buildings draw you into the sunset. But the problem is you see there's a lens flare coming off that building. That's just the metro station, which is covered in a kind of reflective kind of surface thing. I've tried moving around, I can't really get, I want to get it in the middle shooting down the way, but I can't really find a good spot to not get the reflection, so we're just gonna have to bite the bullet and get a bit of lens flare on the shot. I've come down to here to the main square. The light is unbelievably great here, but it is a bit of a clusterfest here. There's so many people clogging the shot, so I'm just gonna have to bide my time, and hopefully some, like an individual, can see there's space open up. So hopefully somebody, at least one person, can walk through the shot and kind of isolate them a little bit. So the light has quickly vanished on me, so I think I might have to, either one would actually, I'm gonna run up over just the brow of this hill, see if I can get more shots in. But I've used about, just churned through just about half that row, so I have 18 shots left. So I might save some for tomorrow morning. I've got a flight tomorrow in the afternoon, so I'm here till midday at the very latest. But I do believe I'll probably extend this video till tomorrow. So if that's the case, I'll see you tomorrow morning for what will be the fourth and final day of this video. I'll see you tomorrow. It's the fourth and final morning of making this video, and this is my last morning actually in Madrid. I'm flying home tonight. Now my plan initially was today to come up early and catch the sunrise, but as you can see by the clouds, that unfortunately hasn't happened for us today. But we'll try and make the most of it. There's actually, as you can see, the overcast day is really kind of highlighting, especially here in the park where I've come to. These really muted kind of nice autumnal tones are looking quite nice. So I think I might make the most of that and just make the most of what we can. I got only a few last shots in last night after I'd stopped filming, so I think I have about 12 shots left on this roll, so we'll try and make the most of it. I'll wander around here for a little bit. I don't want to use it all up here in a oneer in case I can find something else later on, but I've got time for today to do that today. Here's a great kind of peaceful autumnal shot. So you have on either side these trees with their nice kind of orange and yellow green colours are drawing our focus into I'm not actually quite sure what that building is in the foreground there, but it makes for a good shot. I've got a nice kind of, there's a woman walking her dog there, so there's a bit of an action shot, so this is quite a good one. I'll use the 50mm for this. It might not be able to get the whole, so it'll probably cut in about here-ish. I like the setup here. You have this nice kind of archway and red pop against the kind of muted backdrop. This guy here wearing a suit, I actually quite like that. If I can get him in the shot maybe. Oh no, I didn't rewind my film camera, oh my god. Oh, I hadn't flicked the trigger back. Oh, from my last shot there. Because I'd initially got another shot. Here it was kind of a couple was walking down this way, but I'd realised my settings were still wrong. I'd still had the ISO, the shutter speed, sorry, bumped up too fast, or too slow, sorry. And the aperture ring was still set at 1.8. I should have bumped it down to 4. Oh man, well, that's a rookie error. I like the look of these buildings here on the left. I mean, there's not really much of a story, it's just kind of like the kind of like the very European, Spanish kind of feel of it, you know, very warm colours. I like that. I've actually thought of a better idea. Rather than just kind of cropping and just kind of like, you know, keeping those buildings in the shot there, which is alright in itself, I thought I'd kind of look to incorporate this whole street here, which is quite nice. I have been waiting a while to try and see if I can get a good kind of subject like a motorbike or a cyclist or even a person if I'm lucky enough, but unfortunately it's just behind me. You can see there's just a lot of vans coming down, so I might have to play the waiting game. But I think if I can just get this, I'm alright with that, but it would be nice to have something go through at the same time. Ah shit, that guy just walked through. That would have been a good shot. And that motorbike. Right, I'm putting this down. So I've generally just been wandering around the last hour and so and just kind of taking a little wee snapshots here and there. I've not really kind of been lining up a scene as such. I've just been kind of trying to wind it down, but I have come down to the last one. I'll show you back at there, you can see it, 36. This is the last one. Let's see what I will choose to be my last shot of Madrid. Alright, so my last shot is not going to be anything awards winning. It is literally just going to be a portrait shot of this kind of window here. So yes, alright, it's a bit kind of basic. There's not really much of a kind of scene as such, but you know what, if it was a photo that I could tell you sums up what I've seen in Madrid a lot, it is this. You can see it's like every single window has got these little lovely flowers here. Really kind of adds a lot to the environment, gives a lot of kind of character to the area, so that's what I'm going to go for. That'll be the last shot on my film camera. So I've got my last shot in, and with that we will eventually wrap up this video and wrap up soon we're wrapping up my time here in Madrid. I've got my flight tonight. You can see here I've actually had to carry my suitcase around with me all day. The hostel I was staying at wouldn't let me hold it there while I wait for my flight, so I've got to carry this thing around with me, which has made it quite hard because I've got not just like my film camera but also my Fujifilm here as well. So I've been trying to get shots. It's been an absolute nightmare today, so today will be a struggle. But not to waffle it any further, I'm going to wrap it up there. I will thank you very much for watching. If I could leave you with one thought, if you have not been to Madrid, get it high on your list. Beautiful, brilliant city. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.